Really excited about our next guest. I've waited weeks to hear his story from conquering Keeley. That was a hashtag that was all over Twitter when Nate Boyer went up Mount Kilimanjaro for the second time. But he had with him a group of NFL players and wounded vets, and they had a great cause to spur them on. It's After Hours with Amy Lawrence on CBS Sports Radio and CBSSportsRadio.com. We're excited to welcome the former Green Beret, the former Seattle Seahawk, and the former Texas Longhorn to the show now. And Nate, there's so many questions I want to ask you. I want to hear about it. We'll just start with the easy. How was it to get back up to Mount Kilimanjaro and summit that mountain again?
It was amazing. It was completely different than last year. I mean, last year it was kind of a solo deal for most of the climb, and I kind of hauled ass on it and just put my head down and went. And although I did it much quicker last year, it was way more challenging this year because we were with a big group and we had 3 veterans, 2 of which were amputees missing a leg, one above the knee, one below the knee, and then a fellow Green Beret who's blind, and all these other NFL guys that are kind of helping guide them up the mountain. So it was challenging because we were up at higher altitude for a much longer period of time, and also, you're not just worried about the steps you're taking. Every step of everybody else is taking in that crew, you're sort of picking paths and trails for them and trying to help them up some sticky, literally rocky points, and then just keep everyone in a, positive state of mind for the most part, and keep everyone moving forward. So it was definitely a challenge, but so much more rewarding too. When we were all up at the peak, to spend time with each individual that I got to know really well, including my good buddy who'd passed away, his wife who joined us. That was a really touching moment at the top with her. So just an amazing experience.
How did it work? You mentioned a couple of double amputees and one vet who is blind. How were you able to get up this mountain as a group and keep everybody together?
Well, we kind of had it split into a couple groups. So we'd have one group with Ivan, who is blind, sort of push ahead because he liked to keep a little quicker pace. It just worked for him better. I mean, he runs marathons, does all this stuff, and he had a guide that went with him all the way to base camp, not quite to the summit, but all the way, most of the way up. And so then some of the guys that wanted to move quicker, like Coach Jim Mora and Chad Brown and some other guys, Mark Pattison, they all pushed ahead with him and sort of, were the rabbits we were chasing. And then our group would go later. Our group was myself and Chris Long and a guy named Pete, who was a ranger, below-the-knee amputee, a female Marine named Kirsty Innes, who was a above-the-knee amputee, and who ended up being the first one to ever summit Kili. And then Luis Castillo, Nick Hardwick, and Corey Proctor, some other NFL players, along with that woman I talked about, Lisa, and her boyfriend, who came along and photographed the whole thing. So we kind of split like that, and we would sort of take it at the pace of the vets, whatever made sense for them. If they needed to break, we took breaks. If we needed to leave a little bit earlier in the day, because that specific segment was going to take longer, then we did that. And but all in all, it was just a matter of being really attentive to one another. And when you focus on that, it sort of makes things go along a little bit easier on yourself because you're not so focused on your own pain and struggle. You're worried about somebody that's going through a lot harder stuff than you are. So
Mount Kilimanjaro is more than 19,000 feet high. And I know you had some pro athletes, including some NFL players who are still active. But do you need extra training to be able to climb a mountain of that height?
No, you definitely do. I mean, these guys all kind of embraced hiking and being outdoors and doing that type of training. Because if you just took guys from an NFL roster right now, there's no way most of them are going to make it because they're way overweight for something like that. I mean, even the guys that used to be linemen had lost significant weight. And Chris Long, he still weighs 270, and he's still actively playing. And he was struggling up there, but he pushed through it. And the guy, I mean, he's in amazing football shape. It's just different, this kind of shape, especially when you have that much weight you're carrying around. It's a lot more difficult. Some of those O-linemen are down to like 220 now for this climb, and so it's a completely different type of conditioning. It's not even the endurance needed, not really the power and strength. Is just a very different way of training and a very different sport.
We're spending a few minutes with Nate Boyer, who's a former Seattle Seahawk and a Green Beret, and just got down from conquering Kili, Mount Kilimanjaro, with a group of NFL players and veterans for Water Boys. And we'll get more on that coming up here with Nate. It's After Hours with Amy Lawrence on CBS Sports Radio. I know that a good chunk of your group has seen combat before, so this may sound odd, but how dangerous is it to scale a mountain like Kili?
I mean, one of the guy that was originally came with us, that was guiding Ivan, who's a good friend of mine. He was my commander way back in the day. He started suffering from pulmonary edema, and he had to turn back towards the summit, and he's in amazing shape. So sometimes, too, it's a matter of, your body reacting. Everybody's body reacts different at that type of altitude, pushing yourself like that. So, yeah, I mean, it can be dangerous. There's people die every year climbing Kilimanjaro. So it's one of those things. But if you just really listen to the guide group you're with, and they got medic that's going up with us and everything, and you're checking in with them and keeping track of everything and being honest about how you're feeling and everything, then it makes it a lot more safer. It's when people try to push when they shouldn't, is when those kind of the dangers really lurk their head.
Well, we're glad that you got up and down safely, to be sure. You and I met at the Super Bowl, Nate, so I know this wasn't just a challenge that you did for fun. You took a group up there, NFL players, veterans, for a reason. So why? Why did you go and conquer Kili again?
Yeah, this was we were climbing this mountain for clean water. Waterboys.org is an initiative that Chris Long started through his foundation a couple of years ago, where he was getting NFL players involved with raising money for clean water wells in East Africa. And the focus is mainly on Tanzania and Kenya right now. And so last year when I climbed, I was able to raise enough money for 2 wells. And when I went over there with a veteran that I brought, we were able to visit the well sites and see these, like, the dedication ceremonies and, like, how many people it affects. Every well serves up to 7,500 people. And these are the Maasai warriors, this beautiful tribe out in the bush that doesn't need much, doesn't ask for much, but clean water is their support system. Water is life. And that's literally like their national slogan, because it serves not just the people, but all the livestock, all the plant life, everything. I mean, it is essential. And everybody knows that. Everybody knows you need water to live. But when it's disease-ridden or just scarce, like in a lot of those regions, it completely affects everything. The infant mortality rate is really high too, because of a lot of the disease in the water, and waterborne illnesses it's a big killer in much of the world. And so to provide these wells and to raise money, and then see that money actually take effect in the lives that it changes is the most important part of the trip. The climb is obviously amazing. It's beautiful, and it's part of the the attraction. People get excited about the idea of bringing wounded veterans to go climb mountains and conquer these amazing challenges. But if there's a purpose behind it, if there's a service project behind it, it's so much more powerful for the veteran and for the NFL player in this case, because they know they're not just doing it for themselves. They're climbing this mountain for a greater cause, and they're helping those that really, those people deserve it as much as any of us. And for a veteran, when we go overseas in combat, we're fighting for those that can't fight for themselves often, and that's kind of what this mission is. Obviously, there's no weapon, but except I guess our trekking poles. But it's definitely that's what it's all about: the mission, the purpose, and helping these people, because they're so grateful. I mean, just to see that anywhere from the young children to the elders in the tribe. I mean, they all are very thankful and very grateful that we're helping them out.
And you can go to waterboys.org to read more and to see some pictures and some video. It's After Hours with Amy Lawrence and Nate Boyer, the former Seahawk and Texas Longhorn and Green Beret. It's been quite a year for you because you went up Mount Kilimanjaro 12 months ago. How much support have you gotten? How much interest with Chris Long spearheading the project in these last couple of months that maybe is so different from what it was like a year ago?
Oh, a lot. Yeah, it's growing. It's definitely growing. And it's really cool to see some other NFL players now reaching out and interested in participating, current and former, not only in the Kilimanjaro project, but just around the league, guys that are just trying to, through the locker room and fan base, raise some money so they can put in a team well. The goal, Chris's initial goal was all 32 teams donating one well, 32 wells from 32 teams. And we're well on our way. I think we've broken ground on well number 18 now, and I think I bet we get to 32 by the end of next season, and then we're just gonna have to set a new goal. But it's definitely growing, and going on shows like this and people like you, it matters. It helps, and so we really appreciate it.
While I have you, Nate, something else that you and I talked about on Radio Row in Houston was about Colin Kaepernick. And I know that you reached out to him when he originally started protesting during the national anthem. And it was something that you talked about a lot during the NFL season. There is this idea around the league and with fans, whether it's true or not, that Colin is being punished, maybe blackballed for the stand that he took in protesting during the national anthem and all of the attention that his protest got during the course of the season. You have a different perspective than most Americans and most football fans. So what's your reaction to the idea that he's getting blackballed for the stand that he took?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know a ton of owners in the league. I have met several GMs and coaches and stuff like that. And I truly believe it's a matter of, I think it's more a matter of, I guess, where they see them fitting into a system at this point and whether he's willing to take a massive pay cut. I mean, he was getting, I think like $14 million a year or something like that. It was a lot. I know that. And a backup quarterback at this point, I mean, I don't think he's ready to be a starter, or at least the league doesn't believe that as a whole, talent-wise. I think that's a heavy price to pay for a backup. So I think that's more the issue right now than the protest itself. And he said now that he's going to stand for the anthem. He's going to do that for the season, is what he's come out and said publicly. So I don't know if that's whether he really does believe that he's seeing the changes he wants to see, or if it's just a matter of he knows that people may view that as a distraction or whatever. So I think at this point, first of all, it's early. I mean, a lot of these things take shape through OTAs, through training camp. People get injured. We got a long way to go here. But also, I mean, if he's willing to take a pretty massive pay cut and understand that he's going to have to, start as a backup and earn his way into that lineup, I think there's a possibility that he'll play. I don't think he's blackballed at all. I don't believe that. I mean, we've seen teams and organizations take players with much more, I'd say, divisive, histories and backgrounds, and like when it comes to, hitting women and drug use and all kinds of stuff like that. And so I don't think that's necessarily the main reason. That's what I believe. I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong. There's going to be a lot of debate surrounding that for sure. But at least from the guys that I know and the organizations I'm familiar with and those kind of people, I just don't think that that's a huge issue. I mean, honestly, even the 49ers last year, they really embraced that. I mean, Coach Kelly, he was awesome about the whole situation throughout, and he was just like, look, I mean, he's become a leader in a lot of ways on our team too. Guys are looking up to him like they didn't before because he took a stance and he's committing to it. So it wasn't a team distraction internally. I mean, those guys kind of rallied behind him even though they didn't have a good season. That wasn't really the point. So I mean, we'll have to see, but I think it's just way too early to make that call.
Well, that is a great point. You're right. It's still just late March. All right, so you conquered Kilimanjaro for the second time, that unbelievable feat behind you. What are you doing now, Nate Boyer?
I got a lot of different things kind of in the works. I am actually out in Atlanta right now, shooting a movie. Believe it or not, it's called Den of Thieves, starring Gerard Butler and 50 Cent and O'Shea Jackson and Pablo Schreiber, and it's about it's just kind of it's a cool like shoot 'em up bank heist type movie, and I'm playing a Secret Service agent named Dale Russell. And name like Dale, I feel like it garners a mustache. They didn't let me grow a mustache out, but that's okay. I still I got a few lines in it, and it's been fun to kind of try my hand at some of this stuff and kind of see where that goes. I've always been enamored with the film industry, and I do want to get into production and filmmaking eventually myself. But right now, with these looks, I mean, I just have to understand why they just want me on screen. I can't shy away from that, right?
I rolled my eyes while you were saying that. Regardless, it was really great to get your story. It was definitely worth the wait of the couple weeks to hear about conquering Keeley.
I appreciate you letting us share about the mission and everything. And if people want to get on board, I mean, I already mentioned it earlier, but waterboys.org/Kili, Kili, is a website where you can learn more about the program, the initiative, the wells, the climb, everything. And you can pitch some money in if you want. It costs about $1 for a bottle of clean water here in the States. So we'll take $1 if that's all you got.
It's amazing what $1 can do and how we take water for granted. So thank you so much for sharing your story. You can find Nate on Twitter at NateBoyer37 to see more about conquering Keeley. There's some pictures there, and also to keep up with his next adventure. Nate, it was awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Amy. I appreciate it.